Hey, what's up? I'm Basil Barrington, and today we have a very special guest today. Now, if you did not know, KRK, that's the company that makes Rocket and the classics and a bunch of other things. They came out with the latest and greatest generation of the Rocket studio monitors. So today I have Craig Hockenberry. He is the director of engineering at Gibson. Gibson owns KRK. How you doing, Craig?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I really appreciate you hopping on so we can talk a little bit about this new generation of the Rocket KRKs. If you can, just give us a little background about what is it that you do and, some of the projects you guys are working on.
Sure. I'm a director of engineering for KRK Systems. I've been with the company since 2007. So I've been through quite a few of those generations. The only one I missed was Generation 1.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's been a really, really good journey, and we have a lot of fun here. We have a great engineering team that I work with, and I can't give too much away, but we're working on some really exciting stuff in all aspects of the studio monitor world.
Hmm.
So use your imagination on everything you can think of. But
Okay.
yeah, we have a lot going, a lot brewing that you'll see in the next few years for sure.
Okay, that sounds really exciting. Now, my first question is this because a lot of people, even myself for a little bit until KRK sent me the classics. So you have three monitor lines. You have the Rockets, you have the classics, and then you have, what is that, the VTXs?
The V series, V
V
series 4.
series. Okay, V
Yep.
series 4. Okay. So everyone is all, they love the yellow cone and everything else. What is the big difference between the classics and the Rockets?
Well, there's huge differences between the classics and the Rockets.
Hmm.
The classics are more traditional. They are based off of a previous Rocket generation, which was Rocket Generation 3.
Hmm.
But when we moved to Rocket Generation 4, we really stepped up the game in the design of the speakers. Back to the classics for a minute. Those are Class A, B, all analog designs. We didn't use Kevlar cones on that. Those are glass aramid fiber woofer cones. They use a textile dome tweeter. So they're kind of entry level, but very high performance monitors. Um, with the Rocket Generation 4, that's when we really stepped out of that world and really stepped up our game. So with Rocket Generation 4, we stepped up our cones to be Kevlar cones, which is used in our higher end V series. A little bit different motor designs, but the cones are similar. We stepped it up to Class D amplification, universal switching power supplies. We added DSP voicing in it, and we added an LCD screen for the user to dial in all his EQs and settings that he needs to get set up well.
Right,
So
right,
big,
right.
big, big differences.
Right, exactly. That's very interesting because so the DSP that came about with the G4s.
Yes, the DSP came with the G4s. Yes.
Okay. But do you think that that added any like weird coloration, being that you have the ability to go into the back of the monitors, really dial in the sound you're looking for based on your room? I generally run my monitors flat all the time because, my rooms are treated pretty well. So what do you think about that? The DSP, was that an exciting sort of time when you guys thought that, hey, you know what, let's introduce this DSP? And what sort of fanfare are you getting with the introduction of the DSP?
Sure. So I don't think it added any coloration. If anything, it made them better.
Okay.
And the reason, our development engineers, they're a top notch bunch. They've been working with DSP for a very, very long time. And they're very well adept at designing, implementing, mixed signal architectures. So our biggest challenge with the DSP was ensuring that the voicing was absolutely correct and accurate.
Mhm.
And that is very important, obviously, in studio monitors. And it's a good tool to use DSP to get you there in the design stage versus
Mhm.
an analog stage. Analog,
Okay.
you're a little limited on how many voicing EQs you can add in that analog circuit chain.
Okay.
Every EQ you add has a phase shift, analog phase
Mm.
shift, right? Because those are
Right.
all I squared R filters. So in
Right.
DSP, we have the ability to do FIR filters, which has no phase shift, things like that. So it actually is an advantage for us using DSP in our monitors.
Oh, okay, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Okay, let me touch a little bit on the DSP, the 25 boundaries and the EQ and everything.
Sure.
Um, can you just elaborate on that? I mean, like this DSP, as you said, it's
Hmm.
actually it's a better design when it comes to analog,
Yep.
and you can really, again, you have all these tools with the DSP. You also have the app just to sort of figure out your room and everything as well. So
Right.
just elaborate on the DSP, the 25 boundaries, the EQ settings. You know, just give us some background or on how can that enhance your production, your studio production with the DSP and these different settings within the DSP.
Okay. Um, so, specifically speaking on the Rocket Generation 5 that we recently launched, we added some really cool functionality in that
Hmm.
because we have this powerful DSP, and we have 3 voicing modes that we added to that. We have a mix
Yes.
mode, create mode, and then a
Hmm.
focus mode. And if you're talking about each one a little bit, mix mode is kind of just like it sounds. It's best used for mixing, mastering, or critical listening. It's very well balanced. It has a nice flat frequency response. Um, Excellent stereo imaging. Translate amazingly well. It's the most useful mode out of all 3, obviously, and you'll probably use that the most. Most of the time you're in the studio, you're going to be in mix mode, right? The other modes are kind of tools. Skipping to create mode, I like to call that kind of our fun sound. It's really
Okay.
inspirational to listen to. It has slightly accentuated bass, a slight mid cut. Um, that little bit of hype, really help you with your creativity. When you're writing a song or a part of a song, making beats, or if you're just listening and want to hear something that will inspire you. It's a really fun experience. The create mode is. And then focus mode, it's essentially a bandpass filter. It's a really great tool to help bring focus to arguably the most important part of the mix, which is the mid range.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's the range
Mhm.
where most of the instruments and vocals are placed and they're layered
Mhm.
in.
That's where
So
you
that
lose the most too.
exactly. So this focus mode
Yeah.
filter, really help you hear all the details that can get lost when you have that full frequency range going. So that really helps you in. Just think of an NS white cone monitor and how that helps you dial in your mid range. This mode is very similar to that. So you asked about the 25 boundary EQs.
Hmm.
Um, so those are kind of a carryover from our Generation 4s.
Right.
The
Hmm.
reason we carried them over is because they're super useful as they are.
Hmm.
When we designed those Generation 4s, we performed hundreds and hundreds of measurements in many rooms and many acoustical environments. And with all that data that we have, we developed those EQs that would help with the most common acoustical and boundary condition issues that users face. So, for instance, there's an EQ section in there that corrects for LF buildup. When monitors are placed near a wall, along with a filter to help when monitors are placed on a desk simultaneously. So, we also included some filters to assist with rooms with various levels of acoustical conditions, whether they're too bright or too dark. We have some filters to help dial in on that too. So those 25, it's not 25 EQs, it's 25 combinations of EQs that you can
Right.
achieve with
Right.
that.
Hmm. Right. Really interesting. So you released the G4s, and then when did your team think about, hey, you know what? Once we release the G5s, we need to do something different. We need to do something breaking. So, like, how far along, once you release the G4s, did you guys start thinking about, R&D and the G5s? How, was that like a year after the G4s? Just recently? How did that work out?
Yeah, it was a couple years after, I think.
Hmm.
We're always striving to stay ahead of the innovation curve, with our products. We want to make sure our customers have the best in class monitoring systems available.
Hmm.
So a couple years after G4, we identified some opportunities to develop some of those new features I just talked about. And we made those improvements and targeted towards modern studio needs. And one of those improvements, in addition to those voicing modes, is we integrated mounting points in the bottom of these monitors, and we did that because immersive studios are pretty prolific nowadays, and people need wall mount solutions.
Right.
So so we added those rigging points to the bottom of the monitor so they could use our wall mount brackets and install them in their room. So it's small little
That's pretty
things like
tight.
that makes a big difference. Yeah, to
Yeah.
our end users.
Here's another small difference that makes a big a small change that makes a big difference. So I was unpacking the G5s,
Yep.
and then you had the padding, you had the different covers. I was
Yeah.
excited about the different covers because a lot of times in my recording studio, my cat is in here.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so now I have like this. Now you guys, just I mean, a lot of times you have to buy that. That's like an addendum. You have to like that's an additional charge. You included that in the G5s. I guess that's with the G5s, the 5 inch, the 8 and everything else within the Rocket line. That's included.
Yep. Yeah. They include all that, and the reason we did that is because we really wanted to give our customers more value, and we know that a lot of customers were buying the grills from their generation 4. They were buying the grills as a aftermarket accessory, and it
Right.
was costing them $50, a
Yeah.
pair.
Hmm.
So we said, well, why not just include it from the beginning of the design, and that way we can give them a lot more value when they buy the monitors. These are, if we take the 5 inch for example, they're $10 more. Customers' cost is $10 more than the G4s, but with that added value, it's a steal. And even the foam wedge isolation pads, those can run you $10 to $20 aftermarket. And we thought, well, we'll just kind of make that part of the packaging, and
Yes.
you know,
Yes, that's
so
very yes. Why aren't other companies doing that? So, um, I had a conversation with my brother. He's also a producer, and he's sort of, rejigging his studio. So he's buying new gear, like some new analog gear. He's also looking to replace his 5 inch monitors. He has a set of 8s, but he has 5s as well. And I was telling him about the G5s, the 5 inch,
mhm.
and he was asking me, well, what's the size? Because he has a desk where he likes to sit a small pair of 5s underneath the top platform. And I was like, no, 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 this is a much larger cabinet, right? So
Right.
if you look at the classic 5s, that's a very small desktop-ish, sort of cabinet. And then you have the
Mhm.
G5 cabinets on the 5s. What went into creating a larger cabinet for the 5s? And I mean, is there anything inside that's making that cabinet much larger? I mean, again, I know you have the DSP, you have the wall mount capabilities. And if you look at the classic 5s, it's so small. I mean, I'm sorry, yeah,
Mhm.
the classic 5s, they're so small. Then with the G5s, the 5 inch, they're, they're really substantial. So how'd you think about the cabinet size when it came to the G5s?
Yeah, I don't have the specs right in front of me, but I think they're just slightly larger.
Hmm.
But we had to do that because on the G5s, we wanted to extend the low frequency response a bit, which
Okay.
required a little more internal cabinet volume. And
Mm.
if you look at the ports from the G4s and G5s compared to the classics, they're much larger.
Right.
The port on the front is much larger. There's a lot more volume or a lot more area on that port.
Yeah. Hmm.
When we do that purposely. One is to get a laminar flow through that port, so there's very very little noise that you can hear from that port. And with that though, you need a larger port volume. So the port inside the cabinet is much larger than it is on, say, a classic.
Mm.
Um, so that's the reason for it.
Hmm.
And then you also see the front face has some very very large radius curved edges as compared to the classics. And the reason for that is to keep any of the reflections off the corners of the cabinets, right?
Hmm.
So that can become another sound source. So when you curve those cabinets like that, that really really helps your studio or your stereo imaging.
Hmm. Does KRK know that a lot of DJs buy the Rockets? I mean, is that something known like throughout the company?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we
Hmm.
have our customers span all genres of music,
Hmm.
but we know that KRK is very prolific in hip hop, Latin music, DJ
Yeah.
music, things like that, and
Hmm.
we're extremely proud of that, and we think it's because we have such a large frequency range, it's such a usable frequency range, in the low frequencies and high frequencies. And whenever you're talking about those genres of music, it uses every bit of those frequency ranges. So we
Yeah.
think that's why it's a very useful tool for those people.
Did you
Oh yeah,
notice a sea change between the G5s and the G4 once you guys had a prototype to actually test?
oh yeah, absolutely. And we
Hmm.
kind of we've been doing this a really long time, so we can kind of see that in our minds before the design even starts. So
Hmm.
um, once it's verified through testing, it's quite satisfying to see the results of that too. So yeah, we knew that with these three voicing modes, it really opened us up to make that reference sound absolutely pleasing and very well balanced. And
Yeah.
a lot of reference monitors don't sound that great, and it doesn't have to be that way. And I think we've proved it
Right.
with this.
Hmm.
Reference monitors that are very accurate frequency response and very accurate phase response can sound really really good, and that's what we were striving for with this. And with that create mode and the focus mode, it allowed us to really focus on that mix mode and make it sound pretty amazing in a reference world. So
Yeah.
because it's not, it's kind of a monitor that can adapt to different scenarios. Whereas if you don't have those different modes, you kind of got to make it sound good everywhere and still be able to use it as a mix monitor. Where now this is just, it opens up the floodgates for our users.
I want to ask you this one question. This one, maybe this last question here.
Sure.
Um, so when you think about the G5s, and I was just speaking to the team, and they were saying that the G10s, right, from the G4s, the G10s are those
Oh, the
aren't going
all
to be
the 10-inch three ways. Yes, those are the
right.
yes.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
So those are not going to be propagated over to the G5, the fifth
correct.
generation. Is that correct? Okay.
That's correct.
Um, so how did that come about, and why get rid of the three ways with the
Couple
fifth generation?
couple reasons for that. The number
Hmm.
one, the 8-inch version of our Generation 5 performs very very well, and although it's not quite as loud as the 10-inch three ways of the G4s, as far as the low frequency extension, we're right there with them.
Hmm.
So it's not really, it can be used as a midfield monitor, kind of like the 10.3s can. And the 10.3s weren't our best selling monitors, so it wasn't from the commercial side, it wasn't performing to the point where we needed it to carry it over with the Generation 5s. So we had to make sure that 8-inch model could actually perform almost as good as that 10-inch three way.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to take you out of here with my last question. You have companies that are creating studio monitors, a lot of companies that do that exclusively, and then you have just like music companies that produce all sorts of stuff and also studio monitors.
Mm-hmm.
How does KRK, you've been doing this for a long time, right? KRK,
Yep.
how do you guys keep creating, producing these quality monitors and selling them at the price you're selling them at? Because a lot of these, sometimes you just have a new monitor on a market, and then that company gets the influencers involved, and the next thing you know, it's blowing up, but it's a 2,000 a pair monitor, right? So how
Right.
does KRK continually innovate, push the needle, but still keep the prices down? How is that happening?
Well, the number one thing we do is we listen to our customers, right? I
Okay.
mean,
Hmm.
we do a lot of talking to our customers, talking to the retailers that sells our customers, because they're in the front lines and they get the feedback, and we want that feedback, and we're constantly talking to those people and taking notes. And then once we gather all that information and we determine kind of which direction we need to go with our next series of monitors, um, like I said, our engineering team are, they're world class, top notch guys, and we have that ability to source parts and optimize our systems for that maximum value and keep our costs as low as possible. I mean, there's a lot more we can do in the future. We don't throw it all in at once either, because we know there's going to be iterations in the future that we're going to have to add more value and keep the cost down. So we don't just do it all at one time. So we have a lot on the books, so to speak, to help with that in the future also.
We are talking about the new KRK ROKIT Generation 5 studio monitors. They come in 5, 7s, and 8-inch. Really quickly, why the 7 and an 8?
Well, it's a gap filler, I would say. There's advantages to both. The 8-inch, obviously, as I said, you could use as a near field or a midfield monitor. It gives quite a bit more SPL, quite a bit more low frequency extension. And the 7 sits kind of right between the 5, which is a strict near field monitor, and the 8, which could be both, right? So a 7-inch is a nice mid point there that gives you lower frequency extension than the 5-inch, but not as low as the 8. And really, it's about there's so many diverse rooms that people are using these in now. Everything from like an 8x8 bedroom, all the way up to professional studios with professional acoustics, and these will fit all those scenarios, right? So you wouldn't want to put an 8-inch in a little 8x8 room. Really, it was just gonna kind of turn to mud after a certain level. So we want to make sure that we have monitors for each situation at those price points.
Yeah, that sounds good. I am talking to Craig Hockenberry. He is the Director of Engineering with KRK. We were just talking about the brand new ROKIT Generation 5 studio monitors. I have the 5s. You can get them in 5, 7s, and 8. Craig, I really appreciate you hopping on, speaking with me, and I also appreciate just, KRK just helping me with my channel, supporting me, sending me product, and I can get to review it and just, put out really good things about KRK, which has been a company and a product that I've been using in my studio nonstop for over 20 years. So really appreciate all the work you guys are doing.
Well, I really appreciate you and having us on. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Craig.
All right, thanks.